Today on the Eat to Live podcast.
It's like, who would drink that stuff? Artificial coloring and sugar.
They definitely add the artificial coloring.
Yeah. But in any case, so now you have a person who's on a diet that's very high in salt. And when they do a lot of sweating and a lot of exercise, especially in the heat, they lose sodium and other electrolytes. Whereas if you or I, on a very low salt diet, exercised, our sweat would just be water. I guess that means if you cut out the sugar, you can still snort your cocaine. You know?
Hey, Dad, another episode of the Eat to Live podcast. I'm here with my dad, medical doctor, my dad, and new grandfather, Dr. Joel Fuhrman.
And I'm here with my daughter, and I guess new aunt.
That's right.
Jenna Fuhrman. Well, welcome to the Eat to Live podcast.
That's right. And so we stepped up this week. We have new roles. How do you feel to be a first-time grandfather?
It's really exciting. It's so cool. You know, I've been waiting for this to have grandchildren. And now I have my first one.
Yeah, I'm happy for you.
Yeah, nice.
It was about time, I think. So do you feel like, you know, Talia had, I would say, a really amazing delivery and birthing experience.
Right.
Do you feel like watching that and being a part of that, medicine's really changed in the last, how many years since you had a kid? 23 years since you've had a kid?
Right. Yes, it's some new technologies I've seen. Mm-hmm. But I've also noticed that among real nutritarians, how much easier pregnancy is.
Well, Talia had a really good experience.
Like no nauseousness, no digestive problems, no excessively large babies that cause a C-section, easier passing of the baby, with the through a much more comfortable childbirth experience.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that being healthy certainly helps having a healthy and more safe childbirth.
Well, this is your hypothesis?
What's that?
This is your hypothesis?
Well, don't forget, I've been a physician for more than 35 years now. Mm-hmm. It's not just my daughter.
Yeah.
But it's like you see how unhealthy people have more serious problems with pregnancy. And health, when you're really healthy, it makes it so much easier.
You sound like Mom, and Mom was saying, I think the Nutritarian diet really has something to do with the fact that Talia has all of her nutrient needs met and therefore is not getting morning sickness. So
right. When you're more toxic, you have more morning sickness because the body kind of like detoxes itself. And for the baby, it's like more the liver and the body hormonally tries to get itself prepared for the baby by throwing out more wastes. And when you're healthier, obviously, you're not going to feel that sickly from all the waste removal.
I wonder if that's true. I mean, I always really thought I was someone that would get morning sickness because I get plane sick, boat sick, car sick. I know it's not related, but I'm very interested to see if your hypothesis is right because I'm all about it. If it is, I'm all about eating better and avoiding that like the plague. Good. So I really hope so. Yes, but I was so happy by Talia's experience. I thought it was so beautiful and it didn't make me scared to have kids, which I think is a real positive here.
Yeah.
Okay, so the topic for today is electrolytes and energy. So we're going to get into it. So why don't you let us know first what exactly is an electrolyte? You hear that term a lot, but what I didn't realize is it's basically 3 nutrients.
Yeah, it's a big fad, right?
You hear about it everywhere.
It's the craziest fad. So it's mostly sodium, chloride, and potassium, mostly those 3.
Sodium, potassium, and magnesium, I read.
Sodium, chloride, potassium, and magnesium.
Oh, I didn't know about chloride was one as well.
Sodium chloride is, so sodium chloride.
The Cl.
Yeah.
I took chemistry.
Yeah. Okay, potassium.
Yeah.
Magnesium. Mm-hmm. And sometimes they add a little, people add a little calcium in there too, You do lose those electrolytes when you sweat.
When's the first time that you've really read about electrolytes or saw it advertised in a drink? Like, was it Gatorade? I mean, I know Gatorade always said like
those athletic drinks for electrolyte replacement. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's been around for decades.
It has. It's been around a really long time.
Look at these purple drinks. Like, who would drink that stuff? Artificial coloring and sugar.
They definitely add the artificial coloring.
Yeah, it's crazy. And the athletes drink it thinking it's good for them.
Well, yeah. I mean, what's so fascinating is it's geared for a lot of athletes who are people that care about their health, are physically active and fit, and they think they need to replenish with the electrolytes they lose during physical exercise. Would you agree that these drinks are helpful for athletes?
Well, you know what they do with the marketing? They use athletes to market, a nice watch. Roger Federer wears a watch, so you should wear Roger Federer's watch. Mm-hmm. People want to do what their famous athlete.
LeBron drinks the Gatorade, so you drink Gatorade.
Exactly. So you think, I'm going for my jog for a mile, so it's good for me. And, these guys are working out all day long for hours and hours and hours. But the point is that how I look at it is, wow, you have this. People are looking to sell people something cheap that they can make a lot of money on, like a high profit, like sell them water, which costs them 4 cents to make, but sell it for $2.50 for a glass of water. Mm-hmm. We have this special water from a magic, mine. Well, here now we're selling them something, sugar. We're telling people that sugar is junk food. The more sugar you put in your body, the shorter your lifespan. And salt is junk food. The more salt you put in your body over your lifetime, the shorter your lifespan. But now we got a way to market it to people to convince them to take sugar and salt in liquid form. Liquid form, by the way, which means you absorb it more, it causes a more glycemic load in the blood, which is short lifespan shortening and brain changing, right? Brain damaging. Right. But now we got people thinking it's good for them because they're athletes. People the athlete admires, the people they admire are taking these athletes are taking them. But now getting back to, is it necessary? The answer is no, it's not necessary. It's actually hurtful. But it's a complicated answer because when you're on a very high salt diet, then you're always your body has turned up certain mechanisms through aldosterone and other hormones to be excreting a lot of salt in the urine and excreting a lot of salt in the sweat. That's because you're on a high salt diet. So now when you're on a high salt diet and you do a lot of exercise and you lost a lot of sodium in the sweat and the urine, the body can't individually just excrete the extra sodium and the extra chloride. It has to take potassium and some magnesium and some calcium with it. Mm-hmm. So now you're losing electrolytes when you exercise and when you sweat.
So the high salt diets makes them excrete other electrolytes as well that maybe you want to retain. Because you want to hold on to that potassium and magnesium.
Right. And the more sodium you excrete in your urine, your sweat, is actually aging the kidney. And it's not really good for the body to accommodate to try to tolerate all this extra salt your whole life. But in any case, so now you have a person who's on a diet that's very high in salt. And when they do a lot of sweating and a lot of exercise, especially in the heat, they lose sodium and other electrolytes. Whereas if you or I, on a very low salt diet, exercised, our sweat would just be water, and we're not urinating out water. We could run or play tennis for hours, or run or hike in a mountain sweating. Then we wouldn't be losing any electrolytes. Our legs wouldn't cramp up because we wouldn't be excreting potassium and chloride and magnesium in the sweat. Mm-hmm. Our sweat would just be losing water, so we could replenish with water.
Right.
So your electrolyte needs are proportional to your electrolyte use before you sweated.
So you're saying someone that eats a high salt diet might need that extra potassium and magnesium because they sweat it out, but the high salt diets are also super dangerous in themselves. And then you're replenishing with extra salt paired with
extra salt and sugar that you just were taking too much of.
Right.
It's like giving a person who's an alcoholic, because they're feeling withdrawal from alcohol, some extra alcohol to drink to minimize their alcohol withdrawal.
Okay.
So you have this high, because here's what we're saying here. That if you could measure how much sodium you consumed in your whole life, over your whole lifespan, that would correlate with not just your risk of hemorrhagic stroke and high blood pressure, but also dose-dependent correlation with dementia and shrinkage of the brain. Because people don't recognize that the salt causes PAU proteins, which are linked to Alzheimer's, and they don't realize that salt also damages the interior lining of blood vessels, irrespective of its effect on high blood pressure. It doesn't just inflame the blood vessels and cause microvascular hemorrhaging. It also causes interference with nitric oxide production, which has anti-aging and relaxation and health effects on the blood vessels. We're supposed to have exposed to general anti-aging effects and the anti-oxidation effect of nitric oxide, but salt prevents that from occurring. So you're aging your cardiovascular system. You're making it more brittle, more likely to fracture and break in a hemorrhage. At the same time, we're causing decoupling neurovascular messaging, which you can't get the right oxygen to the brain when you have it used right. And then it leads to more dementia and more strokes when you get older. And of course, people who are Nutritarians and people who are following my advice to have a very low salt, or just eating natural salts that are in food, also or people who are on plant-based diets, should know there's an inverse correlation between cholesterol level and hemorrhagic stroke. So an inverse correlation with cholesterol and hemorrhagic stroke means that the higher your cholesterol, the lower the risk of hemorrhagic stroke, and the lower your cholesterol, the higher the risk of hemorrhagic stroke. We've talked about that in studies, in certain studies, vegans have 17% more strokes because of and the point is that the higher cholesterol intake and the higher meat intake and bacon intake, that cholesterol is used to thicken the basement membranes, cause atherosclerosis, but causes some degree of protection from the damage from the salt.
Yeah.
So we're talking about, and we're eating healthier, then salt becomes a major factor, resulting in people's shortened lifespans and poor neurologic health in later life.
It's a deadly trade-off. I remember you used to lecture a little bit about Asian populations that ate a lower sodium diet and tended to be more vegan. And then as the sodium increased over the years, so did their all-cause mortality. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I'm saying that in Asian countries, they eat a lot more salt than we do here. So a low-salt Asian diet is more salt than anybody in America. They eat 6,000 milligrams of salt. We eat like 3,000 here.
And over history, over hundreds of years, it started accruing, getting more and more salt. They're getting
so much salt in their diet. They went up so high now that they have a huge amount. They have 10 times the risk of hemorrhagic stroke in Asian countries, especially. But in any case, what I'm saying here is that people don't recognize the damaging effects of salt, and there's so much sold to them and marketed to them. Now they're marketed sugary drinks with salt in them as marketing as a drink. It's like marketing nicotine to a person or marketing more alcohol to a person as a health food. Marketing, should we market nicotine pills as a health food? Mm-hmm. We're able to convince things people we can make money on with the internet and with all these rationalizations. And another thing people do who advocate and push salt is that they use studies that have reverse causation. That means that if a person develops heart disease, they're advised by their cardiologist to cut back on salt. And the more they get swelling with edema and heart failure, the more strict they have to get at avoiding salt. So when we look at populations and we analyze people that are eating lower salt diets, we're very often identifying those people who have advanced heart disease that are advised to cut back on salt by their cardiologists or by their doctors, right? Mm-hmm. So you could say, look, people on low salt diets don't have great health outcomes because they're looking at people who cut the salt out or people who are not healthy. That's why they cut the salt out.
Yeah, and they're still, right, they had heart disease, then they're taking action.
And then they took action after they have heart disease. Whereas the other type of studies we're looking at is lifetime exposure to sodium. Not late life, not your sodium exposure after you develop, not when you're close to death, but how much sodium you're exposed to throughout life. And those are studies on populations that don't salt their food or don't have much salt in their diet. We look at those populations, and we have plenty of those studies, we find that those populations don't have high blood pressure and heart disease. Mm-hmm. If they have a lifetime low exposure or very little exposure to salt over and above what's in the natural food.
Right. So that's good. So let's talk about the salt fix, because I think you were starting to talk about that. And this is a book that did very well, and a lot of people have read it. And basically his thesis, he cites his work, he cites the studies. It's that you can have as much salt as you want, and actually a high salt diet is good for you. I'm pretty sure, I haven't read the book, I just did a little synopsis. But then, so the high salt is good for you, but it's sugar that's really bad. So as long as you don't have salt with the sugar, you're good.
It's like the carnivore diet.
It's,
or the Atkins diet. It's not the meat that's bad, it's the sugar that's bad. And if you cut out the sugar, you can still eat the meat. Cut out the salt, you can still eat cut out the sugar, you can still eat your salt. I guess that means if you cut out the sugar, you can still snort your cocaine.
Knew a drug reference.
Isn't that what it means? Isn't that what that means?
Well, and it's funny because you could get really confused. You're like, oh, there's all this research here. You could just look at the list of citations. And scientists, it's not just you, but scientists across the board were outraged because it's interpretation of the studies. That's
wrong interpretation of the studies.
Yeah, that's really important. It's kind of what you're saying too.
There are people promoting huge amounts of iodine that's dangerous, and they could produce some studies, but and then who do people trust? They hear all these people. I speak on these YouTube where they have 45 people speaking about health, and I'm one of the 45 people, or 150 people speaking. I'm one of the.
It's such an important
all
question.
These people people giving different advice, right?
And you hear it from everywhere.
And they'll ask me a question: how do we listen to you and not this other person who said the opposite?
Right.
I guess the answer is, don't listen to your favorite guru, because we have to make judgments that are evidence-based, and the person who is interpreting and giving the advice has to represent a comprehensive overview on all the studies available on that subject with no predetermined bias, with their own egos, because ego drives the falsities. Because if you said, oh, you're the doctor, you're the salt doctor, you're the carnivore doctor, you're the low-fat vegan guy.
You're the expert.
Then you've got to pull all the studies to justify your low-fatism, your saltism, right? Your veganism.
You're taking a stance, and then you will look for the stuff to back it up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. You took the stance, you're looking to back it up. We know that nobody's perfect, but I do a pretty good job at trying to evaluate to evaluate all the studies. I even hire a research PhD who works for me, right? Who works full time to try to go through all the studies to make sure we review every study to come up with it's called a meta-analysis. We do our own meta-analysis of the meta-analyses and make sure we rate the studies based on A grade, B grade, C grade, or D grade. Pick the studies that are done the best, the less confounding variables, the largest number of people, looking at hard endpoints, pick the best studies, so in other words, it's the effort for a more comprehensive review of the evidence and give information that's evidence-based and not just take somebody's point of view, because there's too many bad points of view out there, right?
Yeah, no, I was actually just laughing because you're very opinionated and vocal about how we should eat, how we should exercise, how we should do everything. You're definitely polarizing and have a stance. But why people can know you're authentic is because no one wants to listen to your advice, but you'll double down on it anyways. Yeah. You say, stop eating the excess sodium, stop eating the excess salt, eat healthy, work out, you don't cut corners.
I'm not telling people what they want to hear.
No, that's what I'm saying. So that's why I'm thinking you're trustworthy, is it really isn't what we want to hear. And it makes people mad, and you might not go viral on telling people the truth, but it is the truth. And it is funny, like even sodium recommendations, I think just this year they put out recommendations that were even lower for sodium than they have been in the past. So it really shows you the stuff that you've been preaching for 20 years. Mainstream physicians are now getting on board with more so, and I'm sure it will slowly evolve and you'll tweak and update throughout the years. But
and I'm trying to advocate low sodium diets for children and toddlers for the whole lifespan, not just because that's when you get the best effects, because your body adapts to the lower sodium intake.
Right.
And also it takes, you could say, weeks or months to adjust from a high sodium intake to what we're recommending, a low sodium intake. So it's true, temporarily a person could have feel fatigued, have a little relative hyponatremia, or have the blood pressure because their body, they're taking in less sodium and their kidneys still excreting a lot of sodium because the body had acclimated to the high sodium diet. So it takes a while for the body to hold on to sodium, to learn how to hold on to it when you got so accustomed to and habituated to a high sodium intake.
How long would that transition take? And is that kind of like a detox?
Yes, it's about a week. It takes about 1 to 6 weeks based on the individual person. So they could have temporary hyponatremia. That means low sodium intake or hypovolemia, being somewhat dehydrated from not taking in salt in their diet because they were used to such a high salt diet. And that means that some people, not most people, but some people need to reduce sodium more gradually. Okay. They can't sort of cut it out already. And there are some people with damaged ability to control sodium intake with aldosterone, control reclamation of the retention of sodium with aldosterone, and they need a little bit of extra sodium in their food. But that's about 1 in 100 people. You know what I mean? So we're talking about, so there are always exceptions to every rule, of course.
Totally. And that's where I was going to ask this, because I feel like it is relevant. These tests, True Health, True Age, True Diagnostic, Function Health, all these tests. Do you think it's beneficial to actually look at your testing and see are certain things are elevated and maybe it will motivate you in the kitchen?
Yeah, I'll tell you why. I would normally say no, because look, the most important thing is follow a Nutritarian diet. And follow, conservative supplement recommendations, which we know your diet may not have ideal amounts in, right? We don't need this testing to prove that. But the problem is that you and I are seeing is that most people don't want to change their diet as radically and as healthy as we eat. And it's hard to get people to listen to want to change their diet sufficiently to fix their problems.
Yeah, like a motivation.
Right. So when you do a blood test on a person and they see numbers and reasons to see that they're, look, wow, you've got a lot of inflammation.
It's affecting my liver.
Yes, if your liver is not functioning well, you show these...
You're at a high stroke risk. Yeah, I don't even know if they can test for
neurologic
that.
damage is occurring to your brain. Look, you're aging faster. And look, your age is 10 years higher than your biological age, and you're about to have a heart attack or cancer. You're close to cancer. By doing these testing on people, it gives you an extra motivational tool to convince them to make some of the changes we had wanted them to make anyway.
And then you kind of get a pat on the back if you tested and improved those numbers and you're like, wow, that little tweak or big tweak worked.
Yeah, so sometimes it helps you motivate the patient to make the changes you want them to make. And you didn't really have to spend that money on the blood test in the vast majority of cases. Of course, there's some rare cases where you find something on the blood test that you didn't know about, where some individual extra thing or extra supplement could have made a difference for the person. So we're not pushing any particularly high expensive testing, but in some cases they can be helpful.
Okay, so say I'm your patient and I am a person that, sprinkles some excess salt on my food. Like when I'm cooking, I'll crank a little bit of salt. I'll eat chips, but not that much processed food. I'll put some soy sauce in. And after a workout, I will make sure to get an electrolyte drink. If you're trying to say hey, that's not healthy at all and you're harming your long-term health, what would be the steps you would say for me to take in my next week or two?
Well,
Doc.
I would prefer you to stop doing all those things.
Okay.
Stop taking electrolytes.
Immediately. I don't need to wean off.
You don't need to wean off.
Okay.
It's rare that a person really needs to wean off. All the thousands of people that have come into our retreat over the last 6 years.
They're like, where's the salt?
They're all of a sudden, they go from a high salt diet to no added salt.
Yeah.
And nobody has problems with it. Not one person out of 1,000 people. No, maybe one person or 2 people out of 1,000 people we're talking about.
There's some emotional problems with it that takes them a month or a couple of weeks to get over, where they're like, okay, now I actually feel that my taste buds are retrained and I don't need the salt. There is an emotional attachment to salt for some reason over other
there is anything.
minerals.
People are addicted to salt and sugar, to all these things.
It's addicting.
They're addicting to everything. They don't want to change anything they do.
It's definitely addicting.
Yeah. But what we find so consistently on people following a Nutritarian diet is that when people get acclimated to having a low salt diet, they can taste salt in natural foods better. So now the natural foods have more flavor. So they'll often say the second month, the chefs up their game because they think things are tasting better now that they acclimated to a lower salt diet. So eating natural foods tastes better when you're not overly spicing your food with hot sauce either. So the extra salt and the extra hot sauce can have an effect to deaden the taste buds. Definitely.
And I always think I love when I eat kale from the garden or just a tomato. Our family's really good at sometimes just enjoying the simplicity of a food, just a mango that's the sweetest thing you've ever tasted, or just going like that with a tomato. Sometimes it doesn't need to be this fancy dish, and it's really nice to just enjoy the taste of natural foods.
Especially when there really are natural foods. When they're freshly picked or they're organically regrown, they're clean, they're heirloom
fresh
tomatoes.
Figs. We could go on and on. Yeah, right. Yeah, that's cool.
Now, the other issue is about this falsity about fatigue and energy. So people are confused about electrolyte replacement and drinking sugar to get energy. And they're also confused about this idea that you eat for energy, which also drives disease. So the electrolyte craze, salting your food drives shorter lifespans, higher stroke risk.
My blood sugar is low. I need a snack. I need sugar.
My blood sugar is low. I need a snack. Exactly.
Yeah.
I feel fatigue. It's ready for me. I got to eat to keep my energy up. I'm going to the gym. I better have a drink of an energy drink, a couple of energy drink or an apple, some juice or feed before I go to the gym. Come on to the gym. Okay, so they think that their energy is from food, and that's wrong. Yes, the mitochondria, the energy powerhouse of the cell, utilizes calories to make energy. Sure. But it doesn't. But it doesn't cause fatigue when you can't get it doesn't cause fatigue. Let me explain. That I can use caffeine to give me a surge of energy, and when the caffeine wears off, I feel fatigued. And that it make me want to eat to get my energy up. But it's the withdrawal from the caffeine that causes the fatigue. So I'm eating to lessen the withdrawal from caffeine. Now, if I wasn't on the coffee, then I would never feel fatigued, except when I didn't get enough sleep, or if I over-exercised to the point of my body has to replenish itself to restore the self from all the heavy exercise, and I need to rest and exercise less till I feel my strength come back. So both rest and sleep are not food.
And that's what gives you energy.
That gets your energy back, because you can still burn because you're eating sufficient calories in the meals to get your energy needs met. And if you weren't eating sufficient calories in the meal, the body can get that energy from the fat supply. So we don't need to have sugar circulating in our blood for energy. The body stores glycogen in the tissues.
And in fact, if you're always breaking down food, your body's not healing and repairing properly, and that's affecting your energy as well. That's going to exacerbate it.
People are over-consuming the calories they need to keep their energy up. Now, why would a person have to be overweight to keep their energy up? If you have 10 pounds of extra weight on you, you've eaten too many calories. So why would you be fatigued to eat fatigue, to prevent fatigue, by having to overconsume calories to prevent fatigue? And here's my point. My point is that fatigue is withdrawal from your unhealthy diet. That after you finish digesting a meal, that's when the liver and kidneys work together to deconjugate fat-soluble toxins, to make them water-soluble, to increase excretion in the urine. And when the flood of toxins that go into the bloodstream in the non-feeding state causes symptoms of fatigue and even brain fog. And if your diet is unhealthy, you feel more fatigue when you're not constantly digesting food. And because eating halts the liver's ability to detoxify and makes you feel better when the liver's not in a detoxification mode, then people's fatigue goes away with eating. So they mistakenly think that their fatigue is going away because they needed calories, and all they did is stop detox.
Right.
And we're taking the fatigue away by making the body healthier. So the 4 determinants of health, not the only 4, there's more than 4, but the 4 main determinants of health. Number 1, the nutrient concentration of each cell, right? The micronutrients in the cell, particularly phytochemicals and antioxidants. And number 2, the toxicity or chemicals in the cell. And the toxicity is a combination of endogenously produced waste produced by your own body, and exogenous waste, smoke, pesticides, chemicals from the outside world. And the level of waste products, both endogenously produced by our cells, like formaldehyde and ammonia and urea produced by the body, right? Proteinaceous waste, is proportional to the level of micronutrients in the cell. The lower micronutrients, the body can't rid itself of toxins. More micronutrient concentration, toxic load is lower. Mm-hmm. The other determinants
toxic load would also be like inflammation, because we hear that word all the time, right?
Yes, right. The inflammation refers to the damage to tissues by increased reactive oxygen species, more free radicals in your tissues.
Right.
And that's related to these. And the free radicals is one of the toxic elements we're talking about here. Combination of all those toxins cause inflammation.
Got it.
And the body produces inflammation to remove toxins from tissues. In other words, the inflammatory response is a biological response of the body to try to take the toxins and try to get them out of the body and repair the body. Right. So both inflammation and fatigue are signs of detoxification due to an unhealthy lifestyle. So now we have people overeating to keep their energy up, to keep their fatigue down.
Shutting off the detoxification process.
Shutting off the detoxification process, aging them, causing a shortened lifespan, where the 3rd determinant of health is your body fat percent. Lower is better. And your body fat percent determines your insulin resistance. So if your body is not getting enough nutrients, has too many toxins, you're always fatigued and have to keep eating food, you become overweight and your body fat goes up. And these 3 things interact with each other to accelerate your death.
You said 4 things. Are you counting insulin resistance as the 4th?
No, insulin resistance is part of the 3rd thing, because your insulin resistance is proportional to your body fat percent.
Got it.
Now, I don't want to encourage anorexia here. I'm not saying low fat with no bottom limit.
There's a bottom limit.
There's a bottom limit. The optimal body fat percent for a male is below 15%, and for a female, it's below 25%, right? But we don't want people's BMI. We want the optimal lifespan for women with BMIs between 18 and 21, and for males between 19 and 22. We want to be muscular and have some strength of our bones and muscles. So we don't want to be anorexic. We want to eat enough food to maintain muscle mass and bone mass with aging and strength, but still have low body fat. That's the key. Can I maintain my low body fat as I'm aging? And that's the whole what we're trying to do.
Low body fat and muscle mass.
Low body fat with more muscle and bone mass. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right.
Don't forget the muscle mass.
And you can't do that without exercise. You can't keep your body fat low and your muscle and bone mass high without controlling your diet and also doing exercise.
And you know what I really believe with BMI is that your ideal weight comes from the kitchen, and that exercise is just the tool to be like lean and build muscle. I do not think that someone who wants to lose weight will get there sustainably with just working out like crazy. I really do not think that is the way. No, but people do. People think like, I just need to work out to reach my ideal weight. And I really think it starts in the kitchen.
No, you cannot out exercise your mouth.
Right? I swear it. You agree. Okay, so back to electrolytes, because we got into salt. You told people just literally cut the salt out. I understand that. What about potassium and magnesium? Because those are kind of good minerals. Are they minerals?
Yes, minerals. Yeah, good
minerals.
Minerals.
Are they good minerals?
Yes.
And if so, where are we getting those in food? Where, do we have to be worried about drinking, supplementing, all that stuff with them?
Right, good question, because people think magnesium supplements are good for them, right?
Yeah. I mean, magnesium is really having a moment. So I feel like everyone's talking about it.
Yeah. Well, that's because the American diet, when you're eating junk food, you don't take in much magnesium.
Or potassium, I'm assuming?
You don't take in as much potassium, but the people use potassium salt, but it's not that bad as potassium. It's not that bad as sodium chloride. It still keeps people addicted to wanting things too salty.
Is it kind of like stevia, but salt?
Yeah, it's like stevia with salt. And people, have some people have kidney issues where they can't, as they get older, they can't excrete potassium, and they can't take potassium salts either. But the answer to your question is that because the American diet is deficient in magnesium, and because they have an excess amount of sodium to potassium, it causes those problems where magnesium supplementation may help them in some way. But when you're following a Nutritarian diet and we're taking in 600 milligrams of magnesium in our diet already, there's no study that shows there's any benefit from magnesium for a person who's consuming a diet this healthy that has this much magnesium in it. So all the studies are based on magnesium insufficiencies and then so does magnesium help you sleep better at night? Well, it helps you sleep better at night if you're deficient in magnesium. But if you're eating as healthy as we are, you're not going to sleep better because you're taking magnesium at night. It's not going to have an effect.
Right.
Now, the only caveat here I have to mention is that when you overtake magnesium, particularly magnesium citrate, not magnesium glycinate, magnesium citrate pulls water into the stool, isn't absorbed as well as magnesium glycinate, and so it has a more laxative effect. So it can be a constipation relief supplement. So some people that are getting constipated, and I'm not recommending people do this either on a regular basis, but occasionally high dose magnesium citrate can be used as like a bowel cleanse to get the bowels going again after you became dehydrated or ate something bad or you took some opiate pain medications that cause you to become constipated. The magnesium could be used for loosening the stool.
And it sounds like that's more natural than, say, a laxative that you buy at CVS.
Right. It's a little more natural. Maybe it doesn't have as much risk as taking Senna or Cascara, or some other. But in any case, yes, it's a mild laxative. But that doesn't mean it's good for you to take that on a regular basis either.
Right.
So I'm not recommending magnesium supplements.
Well, because you want us to be food first, as natural as possible.
Right.
So you want mainly us to get magnesium and potassium from food. That's the number one best option.
And we get plenty of it from food.
What food's it in? Like everything, right?
Everything.
Yeah.
Particularly vegetables.
Beans, vegetables.
Yeah.
All right, great.
So everything we eat has plenty of it. We don't need to supplement with those.
Yeah, it is funny as you talk about supplements so much. I feel like we talk about them all the time, but supplement protocols are just very different for someone that eats healthy and is getting all these vitamin minerals mostly through food versus someone who is so deficient in so much. And the thing is, you use this word optimal so much when you talk about body weight, muscle mass, vitamins, minerals. It's all in the optimal range. There's lower and upper limits. And most of the things, I mean, if you want to know the things that you can't get from a healthy diet, most of the things you could get from a healthy diet, but there are some that you can't. But if you can get it from a diet, that's always best, right?
Yes, if you're eating healthfully, taking more of something you don't need is not beneficial. People have this, they think that things are marketed to them as something they need is going to help their health. And the question is, do you need that? Do you already have enough of that or not? And so that's what we have to look at. And that's what we're looking at. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you can get a lot from food. Wait, yeah. Okay.
That's the next.
I just want to ask one question. This is actually a member question.
Okay.
So I've been cutting more salt and they're more mindful of their sodium intake, aiming for 1,700 to 2,000 milligrams a day. Do you think that's overkill? And then another member said, should be way higher if you're athletic. How would you respond to that?
Well, we recommend people have less than 1,000 milligrams of sodium a day.
Is this excess or total?
total.
Really?
So they're less than 1,000.
Okay. So you're way lower than the
So 1,700 to 2,000 is still too high in sodium, and it's going to cause high blood pressure and a premature death. So we have the whole population has developed. What percent of people develop high blood pressure in their later years? Almost everybody does. What percent of people develop heart disease in America? Almost everybody does. You can't just be a little better than the average American. So this person is cutting back from 2 packs a day of cigarette smoking to 1 pack a day. It's still a dangerous amount of salt.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
not overkill at all. You want them to go much further.
Yes, we get the food gives us the right amount of sodium. And if you're on 2,000 calories a day, you're getting about 700 milligrams of sodium in your food. If you're on 1,500 calories a day, you're getting about 500 milligrams of sodium a day in your food. You're getting less than 1 milligram of sodium, less than a half a milligram per calorie. Mm-hmm. So that's where staying under 1,000 or under 750 for a woman and under 1,000 for a male based on your caloric intake is what usually happens when people just eat naturally. You hit that right amount of sodium. You have to think about sodium. Now that doesn't mean a person can't eat a little mustard or a little Ezekiel bread that has 100 milligrams of sodium in here or there, and you pushed your level up from 600 to 700 or from 700 to 800 is irrelevant, but we don't go up to 1,700 to 2,000. Mm-hmm. And those
which is the
drinks,
national recommendation. So you're not the national recommendation. You're still way lower than.
Yes, and the American Heart Association recommends people with heart disease try to strive to get way below 1,500, move closer to 1,000. That's what they're telling people.
Oh, great.
But that's waiting for a person who has heart disease to do that. We want people to do it before they get heart disease. We're saying it's lifetime exposure. You don't wait till you have heart disease to do it. That's the whole problem.
So to reduce your risk of stroke in the kitchen, you're saying throw out your salt shakers.
And your soy sauce and your Bragg's amino acids and don't get used to natural foods without salt.
And a little bit of pasta sauce, but always choose the low sodium or no sodium options at the grocery store if you're using packaged foods.
Or use the Dr. Fuhrman pasta sauce with no added sodium. I don't know, the no added sodium must give you about 50 milligrams per cup, whereas the stuff in the health food store, stuff in the stores have like 600 milligrams per cup, right?
For the low sodium options, maybe 200.
Maybe 200.
Yeah.
So
there's options, which is really nice. But I also found what's interesting is back to salt. They say people are mostly getting their salt intake from packaged foods and not from the salt at home. So it's just adding up onto each other. But the most could be from those packaged foods that even some Asian sauces that are even marketed as healthy can be 1,000 milligrams per serving.
Per serving, yes.
A lot. It's very high.
The trick is not to eat packaged foods. Or when you're having something that has some salt in it, let's say you're having a little miso to flavor a Caesar dressing. Mm-hmm. Well, you have to get a low sodium miso and see the sodium content so you know not to use more than 1 tablespoon for 2 people, so you didn't add more than 150 milligrams of sodium to the whole dish that evening.
Right.
So you're keeping that level of anything additional over and above what was in the food very low.
It is crazy that you have to work at this because the packaged food industry and it's so not geared towards this. So you really have to work hard to keep your sodium low, which it's fun. It's a goal. They have low sodium options or no sodium options, which
but you
is
have
great.
To eat at home.
Yeah.
You can't eat restaurant food.
Totally. That also, you could just, after I eat at a restaurant, sometimes it really affects me where I'm extra thirsty and I'm feeling extra lethargic. I'm trying to that feeling
Disgusting.
of dry mouth. It doesn't feel good
when you're to go eat that stuff.
It's so crazy when you're so used to a clean diet, how eating at a restaurant can really it can highlight and emphasize some of the difference between your cooking and what actually restaurants are using with butter, oil,
I don't
salt.
want to go to restaurants, our food we have at home is too good.
Yeah. Sometimes you like to go to, how often would you say you really like to go to a restaurant?
I don't ever like to go to a restaurant.
You don't like?
No. I go to a restaurant because it's some kind of, I had to go or something. I'd much
anniversary or something.
I'd much rather eat at home.
Yeah. Wow. You want to cook for the whole family? Should I get us all together?
No, I'd much rather have somebody else do the cooking, but that's mean I don't rather eat at home. That's different.
That makes sense.
Eat my food at home.
Yeah.
The things I like at home.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Okay. So thanks for clearing up a lot of the confusion about electrolytes. I feel like that's really needed in today's world. But I thought I'd read just one last comment from someone on our YouTube channel because I thought it was pretty cool. Okay, so this is a moment of gratitude. So this person said, I've learned so much from Dr. Fuhrman. I'm a medical doctor and I bumped into him at one of his interviews about 20 years ago when I was practicing conventional Western medicine. I was hopeless about what I could do for my patients. He told a reporter that he doesn't prescribe medications for his patients. He treats his patients with diet and lifestyle changes. I rolled my eyes as I was taught that taking a multivitamin only gives you expensive urine. I started to learn about plant-based diet and lifestyle changes and I've had the most success and satisfaction reversing diseases in my patients and being able to take them off medications. Thank you, Dr. Fuhrman.
That's so cool. The medical doctor appreciate learning from me and being, it gives a medical doctor can enjoy their work because we actually see people get rid of their diabetes and get rid of their chest pains and their blood pressure goes down to normal again. They don't need drugs. And by taking them off drugs, you feel, wow, I really affect this person's life so positively. Doctors love lifestyle medicine.
They love to help people.
Yeah.
People in medical care are so helpful and love to help people. And I can imagine feeling really disheartened as a physician to just prescribe medications and watch people get sicker and sicker. Right. When you realize you have the power to do the opposite and reverse disease, it's amazing.
Right. And those doctors, they want to get out of medicine as fast as they can, make their money and get out.
I've talked to a young doctor who was really discouraged on, what was happening to his patients. So the fact that you've inspired other doctors, I thought was pretty cool.
That is cool.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for you guys for joining us.
Pound it. Pound it, Grandpa. Yeah, Granddaddy. All right.